How is what you do like or unlike what you thought your profession would be?
Oh gosh. So, I don't think I ever knew exactly what it was that I wanted to do. I didn't know that the job that I have now, I didn't know that it existed. But now that I'm doing it, it it's the job that I was supposed to have. I don't know if that makes sense.
It was meant, you felt like it was meant for you.
Yeah, it really is the job that's meant for me. But what I've found over my career is that everything that I did, it was leading to this moment, even if I didn't know that that's what it was. So when I first, was in high school and then even early in college, I wanted to go to medical school. And then I realized that I actually really, more than doing the medical side of things, I really liked uncovering ideas, and I liked the research, and I liked searching for answers. And I found more of that passion in the science and in the research. And so I entered into research intensive programs at my university, and I did summer programs, and I went on to do my PhD. But then when I was there, it still wasn't quite it, but I just kept going. And that's really the part of my career that has really pushed me, is that everywhere that I am, I always do my best and I work as hard as I can, and the right things end up happening. And so while I was in graduate school, towards the end of my PhD, I found a training program in clinical microbiology, which is what I do now. And that is, but it was, it's every step, right? That I worked hard, I did my best at every step, and I kept exploring, and I kept looking for what's that right fit. And now that I'm in this job, when I look back on the job that I wanted, this is it. Yeah. I just had no idea it existed, right, until I was well into my career. So now I see that this job it really is the job that I've always wanted. I just didn't always know it.
Yeah. Oh, wow. Well, that's good that you found it.
Yeah.
Nice. Tell me about a time when you were really challenged. How did you overcome it?
So, I think my greatest challenge, they happened when I was in my training program in clinical microbiology. So this is after I finished my PhD, and I was at University of North Carolina, and it was the most challenging training experience I've ever had. It was my hardest time, and honestly, I tried to quit. And so I walked into my program director's office, and I said, I don't know if this is working for me. I don't know if I'm happy. I don't know if this is exactly what I want to do. Now, I just said what I'm doing is what I love, but even in the middle of it and getting there and that journey, there's highs and lows. And I was in a low on a journey that would ultimately get me to a place that was happy, but I was really on a low, and I wasn't passionate about the work that I was doing. I was questioning my abilities. Usually things came pretty easy for me. Things were generally like I could figure things out. This was really the first time for me that I was struggling, and I wasn't happy with my own performance. And so I started to question whether or not I could really do what I was being asked to do in my program. And I'm so grateful for my program director at the time, my boss, because he told me to go home that weekend and just really think about what I wanted to do. So I went home that weekend, and I came back, and I said, no, I still want to quit. Right? I was supposed to have this revelation, right? And it was like, no, I said what I said, and I meant it. Like, what's the question here? And so I remember that part of the conversation. I remember me saying, no, I really still want to quit. I don't really remember the rest of the conversation, so sometimes I wonder if he hypnotized me or something, because I don't remember the rest of the conversation. But by the end of the conversation, we got to the place where really the reason why I selected that program was because there was an opportunity for me to do some work in Africa, in Malawi. And by the end of that conversation, where I was supposed to be quitting, we were scheduling my trip to go to Malawi. And when I went to, so I stayed in the program, and I spent 2 months in Malawi, in Africa. Malawi is in kind of the eastern side of Africa, in the southeastern part of Africa. And in those 2 months were, I think, the most rewarding 2 months of my professional career. I was able to serve a community that needed my help. I worked on ways to diagnose HIV, malaria, and tuberculosis in those communities. I helped the people who were doing laboratory work in hospitals, where, trying to explain it to people here, the hospitals that I was working at in Malawi, here, if you go in America, if you go to a hospital, you get a room, you get food. It might not be good, but you get food, right? It's hospital food, but you get something. They change your sheets, they clean your room, and you get your health care, right? In Malawi, when you come to the hospital, actually your whole family has to come, because what you get is a bed with no sheets and health care. But everything else, the food, the sheets, cleaning you up, taking care of you, that's all supported by your family. So there's like a whole area where there's families who are living outside while their loved ones are in the hospital. So I was working and serving in those spaces, and that was when I realized that my passion is really about serving underserved populations in whatever it was. And so the challenge that I was having in my program, it wasn't so much that I couldn't do what was being asked of me, it's because it wasn't hitting my passions. And I had to find what I was passionate about, what drives me. And once I found out, okay, this is what's driving me, then I can find it everywhere. Everything that we do, there's a way to serve others. And so I now know that I have to look for that in everything that I'm doing. How am I serving others? How am I helping others? And when I can find that, it keeps me going. And when I find myself getting into those spaces where I'm discouraged, where I'm frustrated, where I feel like, why am I doing any of this? That's how I know I have to check back in with myself. Figure out, am I serving people? Am I helping people? And if I can't do it in one area, let me make sure I do it in another area. Let me serve my community. Let me go give out food boxes. Let me go to a soup kitchen and serve and give, because that's the most important part to me, and that's what feeds me and drives me and keeps me going.
Wow. Well, congrats to you. That's very good. Like, giving back, and it got back to you, that just shows you got rewarded, like, everything for your hard work.
Yeah, like, that's my energy source, right? Like, everybody has something that, like, feeds them. That's the thing that feeds me, is when I'm serving others, it just, boom, like, it's energy for me.
Wow, that's good. Okay, next question. What has been your funniest on-the-job mishap?
So, I don't know if it's so much of a mishap, but so I had to think about this a little bit. But my very first time, this is kind of embarrassing, and I think everybody will think I'm crazy. But so my first time giving a presentation at like a big conference, I didn't realize the presentation was going to be so big. I was thinking like a room with maybe like 40 people. And I walk into the room, first of all, and it's a ballroom size, like huge ballroom. And then people start walking in to this conference, and like the people keep coming, right? So there's just people and more people and more people. And then it's like standing room only in the back. And then I was in a session where there were multiple people speaking. So I have like all of my mentors, like happen to be there, and like are all sitting on the front row, right? So I'm like, okay, prepare for failure. Like, I was so nervous. Gosh, this is embarrassing. I don't know why I'm sharing this. Okay, so anyway, so I'm giving my presentation, and I'm holding on to the podium with like a death grip, right? So I'm holding onto the podium, and I'm giving this presentation, and I like have this thought in my mind, and I was like, okay, you got to let go of the podium. And then I was like, no, I can't let go of the podium. I'm in the middle of my presentation, right? So all this is happening like in my head, and I'm like, you can't let go of the podium. If you let go of the podium, you're going to pass out, right? So I'm having an argument with myself in my own head. Everybody's going to think I'm crazy about whether or not I should let go of the podium. And then I was like, oh my God, can they hear me? Am I saying this out loud? And so like I stopped the interior conversation, and I was like, no, I guess I'm still talking. Like, and so like, guys, like, we got to focus here. Like, I don't know who I'm talking to, but it's time to focus and give this presentation. So you just keep on holding on, and we're going to finish. And so it ended up going really well.
That's good.
But it was like that fear of there's all these people, like, what am I doing? And then I've got like all of my mentors are sitting on the front row.
I know exactly what you're talking about.
Oh my gosh, like it was the most nerve-wracking thing, but I think it was kind of funny of that like internal dialogue that's happening, and they're like, wait a minute, can they hear what I'm saying? Oh God,
a whole conversation.
A whole conversation with myself. So.
And then you like realize,
back to
what
I was
to
doing.
reality.
Okay. Yeah. So I think that's my most embarrassing. It's even more embarrassing now that I'm telling other people.
No, that's funny. It's always good to have little funny, what am I trying to say? Funny mistakes.
Yeah.
Okay. What advice would you have for someone starting out in your field?
Oh, let's see. So I would say the most important thing the thing that's been the most valuable to me has been my networks and my mentors. And so I would really recommend that people, you always need somebody to help you to get to that next place. So I've had mentors on every step of my career that have helped to move me into even sometimes jobs I didn't even know existed or opportunities I didn't know existed. So always being open to being mentored, and always being open to ask people, what do you do? How did you get to where you are? Because that's what happened to me. I was in graduate school, and I heard about this career, but I didn't know what it was. And so before I invested my life in a career that I didn't know anything about, I wanted to find out about it. So there was the person who was in that type of job at my graduate school was giving a presentation. And so after the presentation, I waited, usually after somebody gives a presentation, then there's like a line of people that want to ask them questions. And so I'm super nervous, and I'm waiting for to be able to ask him about his job. So I'm there. I've never met him before. I don't know who he is, but I knew who he was, but we'd never spoken. So I waited, and I asked him, this is who I am. I'm interested in finding more about what you do. Is there an opportunity that we can have to talk? Right? Let me tell you what he said. He goes, no. I said, what? That's not how this goes, right? No. So he said, no. If you're really interested in learning more, meet me in my lab tomorrow morning at 8:30.
Wow.
And be there every morning at 8:30. And if you're still interested, and he was like, and stay for about an hour. If you're still interested, then let's talk, right? And so that showed, I'm sure people come and ask him, oh, what do you do? I'm interested in it, right? He'd had a long career before I got to him, right? So he's probably had this moment before. He seemed very clear on what his normal response was. And so that's what I did. I showed up in the lab every morning at 8:30. And after a while, he said, okay, now let's talk. And so then we sat down and we talked, and at the time, especially my career, my field was very small. And to be able to get into the training programs takes a lot of, they're difficult to get into, right? But like I said, he'd been in the career for a long time by that point. So he had relationships with all of the different program directors. When it came time to write a letter of recommendation, it was coming from one of their colleagues, right? He knew them. He had already had the relationship. So when he wrote my letter, he was writing to his friends on behalf of me. And that's what enabled me to get to that next step. So I would really recommend that people, ask questions, find people who are in fields that you're interested in, but don't just stop with asking the question. Show up, be there, follow up, be consistent, show excellence in everything that you do, because you never know that the person that you're sitting before, the person that you're working with, may just have all the connections that you need to get you to that next level.
Wow. Yeah. So I'm going into UNM. I'm majoring in elementary education.
Yeah.
But now that I started working here, I want to start getting into STEM. But like if I'm teaching, I want it to be specifically like science teacher,
Yeah.
So I don't what advice would you have for me starting out?
Yeah.
Or like just figuring out or being introduced to STEM. I mean, I don't know.
No, so let me ask you this. So it seems like, working, Explorer is such an amazing place, right? Where it's like you get to put your hands to science.
Yeah.
And I think that's what is missing. I've never met a kid, like a 5-year-old or a 6-year-old, maybe even like a 10-year-old, who's not actually interested in science. I've never met like a kid who, if you say they don't say I hate science. They don't say that until, unfortunately, they've been in the school system, right?
Exactly.
And they have to memorize chlorophyll and chloroplast, and they're presented science with this memorization process, right?
Exactly.
Instead of the fun and the exploration and the imagination of science, right? That's what science is. It's imagination. It's putting your hands on stuff.
Exactly.
It's getting dirty. Like, who doesn't like that part of science? Yeah. And so I would say, I think getting into having science educators is so important, and having people, even at the elementary, even if like elementary education, to be able to present science in this fun way and to keep it fun. There are some things we have to memorize. That's just life, right? But we can even present how we memorize things in a fun way. Like my kids, they know more words to songs than probably I know. So clearly they don't have a problem memorizing things.
They just choose not to.
They choose not to. And when it's something they want to memorize because it's fun, they memorize it, right? So how do we present science in a way to kids that keeps them inspired and engaged with science? And that's, so, we call it like a STEM identity, right? So that kids see themselves in the science, and it's not just that thing that you got to do over there. Yeah. So I think that, to me, finding that passion and having people, teachers who are excited about science and sharing that love, that's so important.
And that's exactly what I want to do.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Well, good luck.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.